At some point, black women's lives have to matter as equal in America.
Hello everyone, it's Queen B. Line back to you with another video. This video is an update pertaining to the continued disrespect of the late Breonna Taylor, who unfortunately lost her life on March 13th, 2020. Breonna Taylor was a daughter, sibling, partner, community member, and essential worker. Since her unfortunate unaliving, persons have gone out of their way to spread misinformation, disinformation, aka lying on the late Breonna Taylor. Last year, 4 officers were charged by the DOJ on charges of violating the late Breonna Taylor's civil rights. One of those officers, Kelly Goodlett, pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy. The reason why this story is gaining national traction is one of the officers identified and involved in the unaliving of Breonna Taylor, Jonathan Mattingly, was at an event held by the Republican Women's Club of South Central Kentucky, who honored him in the raid that unalived Breonna Taylor. This event took place at Anna's Greek Restaurant, a well-known local restaurant in Bowling Green. I'm going to say this one more time. The Republican Women's Club of South Central Kentucky held an event honoring Jonathan Mattingly for the raid which unalived Breonna Taylor back in 2020. The restaurant was open to the public at the time of the event. Guests, some of whom had made reservations, were not informed by management about the event being held upstairs. Guests were shocked of what occurred by the bolstering event celebrating an officer who took part in the unaliving of Breonna Taylor in her own home. One of the guests who was at the restaurant stated, "A woman comes back on and introduces Jonathan Mattingly," and everyone roared upstairs, applause, cheers, and our mouths just dropped. Mattingly took to the audience back to March 2020 and shows presentation of photos, video footage, and the sounds of gunshots. This type of blatant disrespect by Jonathan Mattingly, the Women's Club of South Central Kentucky Republican Party, should be ashamed of themselves. And the persons who allowed Jonathan Mattingly to gain access to this tape is a continued violation and harassment of the Breonna Taylor family, Kenneth Walker, her partner, and the community of Louisville, Kentucky. It's bad enough that Miss Taylor is no longer here. This same officer, Jonathan Mattingly, not only helped in the unaliving of this young black woman, But this man released a book 2 days after the anniversary of Breonna Taylor's unaliving last year. In addition to filing a lawsuit against Kenneth Walker, the partner of Breonna Taylor, citing assault and emotional distress. I'm going to say this one more time. Jonathan Mattingly released a book 2 days after the anniversary of Breonna Taylor's unaliving and filed a lawsuit against her partner, Kenneth Walker, citing assault and emotional distress. Now you will watch this interview with Joy Reid and the NAACP Warren County's president, Ryan Dearborn, and I will be back with more commentary.
Wielding a bogus no-knock warrant. It was part of an event held by the Republican Women's Club of South Central Kentucky, who were hosting John Mattingly, one of 3 police officers who fired shots during the raid of Taylor's apartment. Mattingly was hit by a bullet fired by Ms. Taylor's boyfriend, who quite logically thought intruders were entering the apartment. Restaurant patrons were forced to hear and watch that heroic scene. One told NBC News that she heard actual gunshots in the videos and that they showed footage of Taylor's body, saying words can't even describe how absolutely disgusting it is what this group put on. Neither the Republicans of Kentucky nor the local Republican Women's Club has responded to NBC's request for comment. But the local club told Spectrum News before the dinner that, quote, these events may be controversial. However, we believe Sergeant Mattingly has the right to share his experience. That's something Mattingly has certainly done enough of, taking advantage of the killing to turn himself into a conservative media darling, doubling down on the events of that night. A few months after Taylor's death, he wrote an email to his colleagues saying, quote, I know we did the legal, moral, and ethical things that night. It's sad how the good guys are demonized and the criminals are canonized. He's gone on Megyn Kelly's show to attack the way media covered the case and to promote the book he's selling to profit off his role in the death. And he has a penchant for lawsuits, filing one against Taylor's boyfriend for assault and one for defamation against an attorney for calling Taylor's death a murder. Joining me now is Ryan Dearborn, president of the Bowling Green, Warren County branch of the NAACP. Mr. Dearborn, thank you for being here. I do want to read part of your statement on the incident, and it said the following: it is beyond reprehensible to subject anyone, let alone children and customers of African-American descent, to such indecent exposure, graphic and upsetting images while they were attempting to enjoy their meal. Are you aware of how many patrons were in that restaurant, in that Greek restaurant, and whether indeed there were children and African-American children at that present?
So to our best estimation, there were about 70 people that were downstairs in the restaurant, and about 80 people that were part of the Republican Party group. So we don't know that there were any children there, but we do know there were at least 2 African Americans in the room that were subjected to hearing the sounds and having their meal interrupted with something that they were not aware of when they first walked in the doors.
Now, and just for those, we were having a little bit of a Zoom issue with you. For those who didn't hear, you said there were about 70 to 80, you said, patrons in the restaurant enjoying their meal and about 80 people at the event?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so what is the response in the community? Because there were protests outside. There are protests actually going on tonight, protests at the restaurant. My understanding is these are the protests that took place tonight, really in this hour. My understanding is that this was the second choice of this group of where to hold this protest. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am. Initially, they were supposed to be at the Bowling Green Country Club, but as some of the pressure rose from the statement we had put out initially denouncing the event, they ended up canceling. The country club said, no, we don't want to have you here for this event. So Anna's Greek Restaurant was the second choice, and that's where they had the event at the last second. And
do we know if Ms. Taylor's family has responded to what took place?
Not to this point. We haven't had contact with her family, but in the coming days, we hope to talk to them as we complete our investigation of this entire event.
You know, Mattingly has blamed Ms. Taylor's boyfriend, who heard someone banging on the door. Someone busted in, and he believed it was an intruder. And so he, using his right to bear arms, fired into the dark at what he thought was an intruder, hitting Mr. Mattingly. Mattingly has used that to essentially portray him as a criminal and Breonna Taylor as a criminal, and to make himself seem like a hero. This group seemed to agree that this person is a hero. Have they responded to the NAACP to explain why they are treating a police officer who killed an innocent young woman who'd done nothing, broken no laws, why they're treating him as a hero?
They haven't, and that's kind of the thing that we want to find out. They say that they want to have an open dialogue with somebody who was there at that night of the incident. Why not bring out Breonna's mother? Why not have other people that are there? So we want to find out why it was important for them to have Mr. Mattingly there, and why this was a thing, because this is something that should have a different context. And having him to be there to promote his book or to talk about the situation, the circumstances, we feel is very disgusting to be able to do that.
And I can tell you that there's a reason why we're not showing any images of the book. We're not going to try to help him sell a book off of all of this. My last question to you: do you know of any current elected officials who attended this event, who are sitting elected officials? We know that the Attorney General, the top law enforcement officer of your state, actually is the one who justified these shootings, only convicting one person or prosecuting one person who shot a bullet that wound up in a white residence apartment wall, and actually refused to even prosecute those whose bullets ended up in black neighbors' walls. He was very deliberate in saying just the bullet into a white patron's wall was the crime. Was he there? Was anybody else, any local officials there, Kentucky officials?
He was not there, and we have not been able to determine of any other local officials that were there. That's part of the investigation.
This form of harassment needs to be called out, and persons who are responsible for releasing that video to Jonathan Mattingly should also be held to account. This unfortunate incident of the unaliving of a black woman should not even be displayed for the public to see and to hear. And the fact that persons felt comfortable, felt at peace with hearing, seeing the unaliving of a black woman screams you have no humanity. And for this restaurant to co-signing this unfortunate incident so that their patrons who did not even know that this was taking place screams you have no regards for human life. If the roles were reversed and persons were seeing the unaliving of a different woman during a raid, that restaurant would no longer be in service. The words of Malcolm X ring true today in 2023 as it did when he was alive. Now you will watch this brief clip, and I will be back with more commentary.
The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman.
Protect black women should not only be a phrase, but it should be a way of life. Say their names, known and unknown. Say her name, Breonna Taylor. Justice for Breonna Taylor. Please be safe out here, and I will see you in the next video.